Hello, I found this article on the Al Jazeera website, and I hope you will forgive my what might turn into a descent into a furious rant. I might be able to control myself, I don't know. But when I saw this, I just saw red. And it's this: Taliban delegation to hold humanitarian talks in Norway. Taliban and humanitarian are two words that cannot be condensed into one sentence. It just oxygen depriving stupidity, ridiculousness, surrealism. Okay, just a minute before I absolutely lose my cool. I'm Graniopteryx. I'm on Rumble, BitChute and Minds as Graniopteryx. I'm on YouTube as Demiret, but Graniopteryx will find me there as well because it's in my details. Please like, subscribe, share my videos, and also remember, if you're on YouTube, you're very likely to be desubscribed, unsubscribed, or whatever they call it, without your knowledge. They seem to do that a lot. Deliberately or just because the algorithm is bad and works badly, I cannot say. Right, let's get on to this Taliban delegation. Norway's foreign minister stresses that the planned visit is not a legitimization or recognition of the Taliban. Yeah, and black is white, and war is peace, and freedom is slavery. What do you mean it's not? They're turning up, there they are, at the airport, with their passports. They will have passports coming through. I don't know. This is a picture of them coming into Doha to sign an agreement with the United States. But it's the same sort of thing. They'll be walking through, they will be received by officials, they won't have to hitchhike a lift to whatever office they're going to, will they? They are being recognised. What do you mean this is not a legitimization or a recognition? Of course it, well, is. A Taliban delegation will hold talks with Western officials in Oslo next week on human rights and humanitarian aid in their first official visit to the West since returning to power, the Norwegian and Taliban governments have said. Have returned to power. No, they are not in power, they are conquerors. There's a difference. And the Norwegian foreign minister said Friday that it has invited representatives of the Taliban to Oslo from January the 23rd to January the 25th. So they make it look like the Norwegians asked the Taliban to come round. Well, maybe they did officially, but the Taliban are in such a mess. They are coming cap in hand to these people whom they despise. They will have already been opening up channels and saying, look, we need help, we're starving, we've got no fuel, all the rest of it. All the people who helped them get into power seem now to have pulled the flying carpet out from under their feet. Norwegian newspaper VG, which sounds like a disease I don't want to know about, said special representatives from the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, Italy and the European Union were expected to take part. The ministry did not comment on the newspaper's report. So here we have a situation where an international group of people are coming together in Norway to meet these murderous conquerors. And this isn't supposed to be a recognition of their vicious regime. Norwegian Foreign Minister Anniken Huitfeldt, sorry if I didn't pronounce that properly, stressed that the visit was not a legitimation or bugger, We are extremely concerned about the serious situation in Afghanistan, Huitfeldt said, noting that economic and political conditions have created a full-scale humanitarian catastrophe for millions of people facing starvation in the country. No, economic and political conditions, religious conditions. Religious conquerors have taken over the place, and they are guided by a religious dogma that was built in the 7th century. Of course they can't run a modern state. The acting foreign minister in the Taliban government, Amir Khan Muttaqi, well, whatever, will lead the Taliban delegation to Norway. The trip would be the first time since the Taliban took over the country. That's more like it, Al Jazeera. In August, that their representatives have held official meetings in Europe. They have previously travelled to Russia, Iran, Qatar, Pakistan, China and Turkmenistan. They have been all over the place begging for money because their superior ideology can't even feed their people, let alone run the buses. Zabihullah Mujahid, the Afghan Deputy Culture and Information Minister, oh yeah, he's got a title, hasn't he, said Muttaqi expects to hold separate meetings with the US delegation and bilateral talks with European representatives. Well, this is one place where they can't shoot the place up, I suppose, to get their point across. The rights of women and girls in Afghanistan are likely to feature prominently in the talks. Oh yeah, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. Somebody's going to bring up, well, what about the women? Oh, we don't talk about the women. Oh, all right, let's talk about the oil, or the lapis lazuli, or the lithium. Yeah, we'll leave the women out of it until next time. Yeah? Along with the West's recurring demand for the Taliban administration to share power with Afghanistan's minority ethnic and religious groups. Yeah, good luck with that. They're selling their baby girls, families there. They're selling their infant girls to, Saudi paedophiles to get food for the rest of the family. But this is what the Taliban ideology has done to people. If anyone thinks that's a superior ideology, then they have a serious problem inside their heads. Education for girls currently is restricted beyond the 7th grade. I don't know what the 7th grade is, but I'll bet you it's no more than reading and writing. In all but 10 provinces. In the capital, Kabul, private universities and high schools have continued to operate uninterrupted. So the richer people, they're scraping along somehow. I'm not so sure about that either. The Norwegian Foreign Ministry said the Taliban delegation's meeting with Afghans in Norway would include women leaders, journalists and people who work with, among other things, human rights and humanitarian, economic, social and political issues. Yeah, the example of those people in the West is going to help. There was a group of, I think it was Swedish politicians, who went to Iran and they dressed in the uniform. The hijab, the long clothes. What an example they were. All these women's rights people pandering to this medieval, pre-medieval ideology. It's pre-medieval. We call it medieval. In Britain, in the 7th century, we call that the Dark Ages. The Middle Ages didn't start till about the 10th century. And this stuff was brought up then in the 7th century. It's not even medieval. Muttaqi is certain to press the Taliban's demand that nearly 10 billion frozen by the United States and other Western countries be released. They're there for money, handout. I do hope that Britain isn't going to embarrass itself by giving them that stuff, and nor the Americans or anyone else. Earlier this week, a Norwegian delegation visited Kabul for talks. I'll bet you there weren't any women there in the Norwegian delegation. Oh no, it's probably safer not to. The foreign ministry in Oslo said Afghanistan is experiencing drought, pandemics, economic collapse and the effects of years of conflict. Well, it was doing all right before the Taliban took over. It wasn't marvellous, but it was rubbing along, wasn't it? According to them, some 24 million people experience acute food insecurity and are unsure of how to obtain enough food. It is reported that 1 million children may die of starvation, and that's all at the feet of the Taliban. If they cared about their people, they wouldn't have been there in the first place. And why don't they go to Pakistan? They were the people that enabled them. Let Pakistan clear this up. Oh, no. They're going to the despised agents of Satan. America, Britain, Norway, the evil Western infidels. Do you see a disconnect there? It added that the UN estimates that famine will affect more than half the population this winter, and 97% of the population may fall below the poverty line this year. The announcement of the talks come days after the Taliban stormed an apartment in Kabul and arrested a female rights activist and her 3 sisters. A Taliban statement appeared to blame the incident on a recent women's protest, saying insulting Afghan values will no longer be tolerated. There is no way of insulting Afghan values the way the Taliban frame them. They are below insult. Meanwhile, Amnesty International urged the Taliban authorities, they're going to take notice of that, to investigate the abduction of Alia Azizi, a female prison official who's been missing for more than 3 months. It's been more than 3 months since Alia Azizi disappeared, and her family still remains completely in the dark about her whereabouts. Her apparent abduction takes place within the context of the Taliban illegally detaining members of the former government, journalists and assorted critics across the country, said Zaman Sultani, Amnesty International's South Asia researcher. The Taliban are total bastards. They shouldn't be in charge of that country, and the West shouldn't give them any help. Let Pakistan and Saudi do it, or China, the people who've been backing them all this time. Oh no, they're not getting help from them. And yet they're still pursuing their vile ideology, which is murdering their people. We can't look after all the people that those guys are wrecking. We just can't do it. We should not prop up that evil, vicious regime. It would be like the British propping up Nazi Germany. When Nazi Germany was defeated, that's when Britain and America came in. But they wouldn't do it while Nazi Germany was busy murdering its ethnic minorities and stomping all over the rest of Europe, which is basically what the Taliban have done. No, we can't do it. We should tell them they clean up their act, then we help them, as if they're even worried about their dying children anyway.
Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.